Hello everyone, welcome to my channel if you're new, welcome back if you've been here before. Today I want to talk to you guys about why diets don't work and how to start really getting away from that and creating, basically finding food freedom, which is getting away from the dieting and getting out of those cycles that you find yourself stuck in. So if this sounds like something you are interested in learning more about, make sure you keep on watching and we will get right into it. So first off, I just want to talk to you guys about some of the problems with dieting and why they are not sustainable long term. So oftentimes they are really temporary fixes. So it's really that focus on short-term success of losing weight, and very rarely has it got long-term sustainability in mind. So that is one of the first issues with dieting, is really that focus on those short-term losses over really creating lifelong changes. So another problem with dieting is a lot of the time it is pushing ideas that we really need to restrict certain foods, we need to limit foods, and we can't have certain food groups, whatever it is. It's really pushing that, and the issue with that is when we aren't eating enough, we really can find ourselves really craving foods that we wouldn't crave if we were fueling our bodies with plenty of nourishing foods. And this can result in binge eating, emotional eating, overeating, when we finish the diet or even during the diet, because we really just struggle to keep up with that sort of restrictive dieting. And this obviously kind of rolls on to the previous one. It's not sustainable long term. So another thing, which I don't talk about a lot, but it is something that does happen when we are dieting and restricting our calories especially, is metabolic adaptation, which is when our bodies really get used to eating lower calories or eating a certain amount of calories, when in reality we could be eating more and still losing the weight. It's our bodies really do adjust to the lower calories, and this causes weight loss to be harder, slower. It causes things like plateaus. And we can really get frustrated and find ourselves really stuck in that dieting, in that yo-yo dieting, because it takes fewer calories for us to be able to kind of maintain our weight. And what happens when our metabolism slows down like that, or our body gets used to lower calories, is that when we find ourselves, we've lost the weight or we hop off the diet, we then gain the weight back pretty fast, and some as well. A lot of the times when it comes to dieting, we do end up gaining more weight than we've lost once we're finished with the diet, and something that I see a lot and you maybe have experienced yourself. So yeah, that is another thing. And another really important one to take notice of is the mental toll of it. So being stuck in yo-yo dieting and constantly dieting, feeling as though we can't have certain foods, otherwise we'll gain weight, those sorts of things can really cause really bad fears and anxiety around food, which obviously isn't helpful if you want to have a healthy relationship with food. So that is another problem with dieting, is it really isn't helpful in creating that healthy relationship with food. And that is the reason I really like to help people get away from the dieting, because obviously we want to be able to create a relationship with food that feels really good, and dieting is not the way to go about that. So now I wanted to talk to you guys about the food freedom solution. So I'm going to discuss this a bit more around how to get away from the dieting and start losing the weight, but also creating the relationship with food that feels good. And yes, you can have both at the same time. So here are a few things that kind of encapsulates or is what food freedom looks like. Is number one, being able to listen to your body and use your body's hunger cues as indications of when you should eat and how much you should be eating, rather than a strict schedule or of how many calories or what you should and shouldn't be eating. It's really looking at focusing on listening to your body. So the next one is no more cutting out foods and telling ourselves we can't have certain foods. So by doing this, we really cutting out the idea that there's good or bad food. So really getting rid of those beliefs and ideas around food, so that we can start focusing on nourishing our bodies and having this as our core goal, rather than restricting and reducing or limiting and cutting out food groups. So this can really help with getting rid of cravings, rather than Because when we find ourselves cutting out certain foods, more often than not, we're putting that food on a pedestal, and that makes us really crave that food and want that food more. So it's really about getting away from that idea and those beliefs around having to cut out certain foods, and really telling ourselves that we can't have certain foods as a good idea, when it's really not. It really causes us to crave those foods more and really want those foods more, especially when we haven't had them for a while. When we do have them, we end up overeating them. So it's about getting rid of those sorts of situations by not cutting them out in the first place, and just really focusing away from this. And this kind of entails with the next point that I have, which is focusing on nutrient-dense foods. So having this as your core goal, so focusing on where you can add in more nourishing foods to take care of your body and nourish your body, rather than how can you restrict and take away from your body or take away from your diet, and having that as your core goal. Instead focusing on what you can add in and crowd out the less nutritious foods in this way. By having that, obviously, that main goal of taking care of your body and adding in more nutritious foods. This is a much more positive and healthy way of looking at your diet and just creating a healthier relationship with food. And yeah, that's a really important thing to be able to start doing and shifting towards. Another one is mindful eating. So just really becoming a lot more mindful when we are eating, around enjoying our food, and also listening to ourselves, listening to our bodies when we are feeling full. And also when it comes to things like emotional eating, just becoming a lot more mindful about why, and if we do find ourselves emotionally eating, why we are turning towards foods in those moments. So this is obviously something that we need to really start addressing, those underlying issues, and understanding why we are emotionally eating, but we need to be able to slow down and become more mindful to be able to do that. I have done another video on really addressing the underlying issues and causes of emotional eating. I'll leave that linked below if you want to know a bit more about that and how to start doing that as well. So another thing I wanted to say about focusing on finding food freedom as your goal rather than dieting, is that it is focused on lasting results. So it's really focused on creating lifestyle changes rather than short-term weight loss. So weight loss will come. It might come slower than it would on a diet, and that's okay. I see that as a good thing, and I hope you can too, when you're able to truly shift the focus away from weight loss and towards taking care of your body, and just really seeing how you can take care of your body more and really being more compassionate towards yourself in the journey. You'll notice that weight loss doesn't even feel like the goal anymore. It comes as a bonus, but how much better it feels to have that healthier relationship with food outweighs that anyway, and it just feels so much better to not feel so stuck in your relationship with food and the constant dieting. So that is all I want to talk to you guys about today. I hope you found it really helpful. If you have any questions, make sure you leave them below. I also post weekly videos, so if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.